I'll think about it.
You close your eyes and start tuning a little bit in. So when you're feeling yourself now, and whether you have your eyes open or closed, that's the everyday mind that arises. But it is essentially the nature of mind. It is the nature of mind that takes colors of experiences. So the everyday mind is all the time the nature of mind. And the nature of mind takes forms and names as the everyday mind. The everyday mind is a point of view. Everybody's mind is like a movie tape that you put a neutral light through and it reflects on the screen. It's your world. So in that sense the world is totally subjective. The nature of mind is just like a neutral light that you put through the piece of a movie tape. And then suddenly on the screen, up on the screen, the world arises with all the people and cars and so in that sense the world is yourself. It's your own self. Because you are that neutral light, essentially. Or the neutral light is like the neutral light you send through a prism, and it bends into 7 colors. It's still the neutral light, even if it's green, even if it's red, even if it's blue. It never loses being the neutral light, but it looks differently. And that's why where we get deluded, we take things for what they shows apparently. We don't look deeper. We don't look through it. And if we think we look through it, then we go into our thinking, but that's still the everyday mind. Thinking is also the everyday mind. So how do we perceive things rightly? By being quiet. There's nothing on the tape. Nothing on the tape. Not a single thought is steered. And then suddenly the neutral light reflects the neutral light. The empty mirror reflects the empty mirror. And you know who you are. You know you are that that mind itself. And if you have that experience, then it doesn't matter what you experience afterwards. You will know all the time who you are. So then suddenly you're not identified with your emotions. Suddenly you're not identified with your stories. They still arise, but it's like they could arise for anybody. You could say, oh, they're arising from the neighbor, because there's no attachment. There's no attachment to it. Yes, it is like that. There's no personal attachment to the stories, but still they arise, because that's your karma. As long as the body is here, there is karma that needs to be lived out. And when you suddenly feel that things happens in your life that you feel you're so innocent about, that what this has to do with me, then the Buddhists will say, but that is your karma. That's things that has happened before that you've forgotten about. If you go down in this garden and you pick a little blade of one of the trees, you hurt yourself, essentially. That's karma. You take one little blade of a tree because it's your experience. There are no trees separated from you. It's yourself. And of course not in a personal way. It is yourself as this nature of mind. So you can say from my point of view that the Big Bang happens all the time. It's happening all the time. Every time there is a being open its eyes, the Big Bang is happening. One little being open its eyes and the world arises. It's the Big Bang. It is the nature of mind taking form of something. That happens all the time. And I see the Bible story about God creating the world the same way. That God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. That are the chakras. That is the totality of experience. The 7 chakras are the totality of what man can experience. So this creation happens all the time, every moment. The map, the chakras are the map over the totality of man's possibility to experience. It's the everyday mind, except the 7th chakra. That's why God rested on the 7th day, because you cannot talk about the 7th chakra. It is meditation. So that is the nature of mind and the everyday mind. Today there's a sutra here of Ma-tsu that says delusion and enlightenment. Delusion means that you are not aware of your own fundamental mind. Enlightenment means you realize your own fundamental essence. Once enlightened, you do not become deluded anymore. If you understand mind and objects, then false conceptions do not arise. When false conceptions do not arise, this is the acceptance of the beginningless of things are. You have always had it, and you have it now. There is no need to cultivate the way to sit in meditation. Oh, he's really tired this morning. It's not true, Ma-tsu. Meditation starts afterwards. Delusion means you are not aware of your fundamental mind. Yes, that's when you are entangled in everyday mind and know nothing else. The everyday mind can be peaceful, loving, aggressive. It can be all kinds of things, but that is the deluded mind. The mind you experience through the 6 senses, with the 6 senses, the thinking, that is the deluded mind. Beautiful trees, people, cars, toilet paper, soap, food, feelings, everything goes on endlessly arising. And it will go on arising afterwards, also after your enlightenment. But you will not be attached to it. You will not believe it's you. That's the only difference. As long as the body is here, it will still continue to arise. And maybe there will come very great challenges when the body gets older and starts having pain. Then it's very difficult to stay in the clarity, because the pain simply drags you in and gets you attached and identified. It's a great challenge. So become clear before the body gets too old, because then you simply die as a body and know nothing else. 99.9% of people die as the body, know nothing else. When the body dies, they die. When you have awakened, then the body falls away, but you don't go anywhere. You have already realized that you are not the body. Delusion means you are not aware of your fundamental mind, yes. Enlightenment means you realize your fundamental essence. The fundamental essence is the nature of mind. Pure consciousness, awareness. Once enlightened, you do not become deluded anymore. No, if it really has been really strong. For most people, you have Satoris, and it disappears again. I've, over the years, met so many people that had a glimpse that lasted for 2 minutes, few hours, some days. and then it disappears. And when it starts disappearing, they start grasping at it, and then it disappears fully. Because then the very grasping shows that you don't know it. That's why I played with Gita yesterday and said, see if you can kick it out. Because to kick it out, you have to have it. You have to admit you have it. But when you doubt, then you start feeling and believing that you don't have it. And then the fight starts. The grasping into the memories of something that you have a memory of, but it's not there now. And then it gets worse and worse and can be extremely painful. And people suffering here, and they think that the mind can get it, but the mind cannot get it. They go into the everyday mind and use the everyday mind to grab the nature of mind, which is impossible. How to then do it? When it starts disappearing, relax. When it starts disappearing, just relax. And that is difficult. Relax. Don't do anything, just sit or lay down, relax totally. And when you totally relax and just stay in trust, stay in the heart, then suddenly it comes again. But you cannot do it. You can be open. You can invite it. And then suddenly it just comes by itself again, because it's there all the time. So the very grasping for it pushes it away. In my days, many years ago, when it starts being there more or less all the time, when it sometimes disappeared, I could be so much in pain about it that I cried. And the very crying made me relax. And then suddenly it was there again. Oh, it's like a gentle breeze that just comes, and it takes all the sorrow and all the struggle away. But you cannot force that breeze. It's bigger than you, it's bigger than the little mind. It's so inexhaustible, it's so big, it's so amazing. And it just comes like a breeze from deep within, and it takes all the attachments away in 1 second, not even a second. And you haven't solved anything. It all dissolves. So once you enlighten, you do not become deluded anymore. Yes and no. It depends how deep it has gone. Old habit, like the Buddhists will say, dies very slowly. So you have the old habit mind that keeps on coming back, and you get attached again for maybe for a few minutes, and then you stop up and relax and watch your breath and just be present, and then it is there again. But you cannot do it. You can invite it. One of the ways to invite it is also to just stop up and watch your breath, or walk and watch your breath, because the breath is something that goes on by itself. It doesn't need you. The breath is moving just like the blood is moving in your body. So you are not needed there. The ego is not needed. To the moment you just relax into the watching the breath, there is a let go naturally. And there's a deep intimacy naturally, because the breath is very intimate. So that's very, very natural way. Being aware of the movement of the breath. Like we were doing this breathing this morning, and you can just continue during the day watching the breath. Not controlling it, just being aware of it. The breath is moving just like your heart is beating, isn't it? It's a non-doing. And the doing is the problem. Because the doing sets the duality, as we talked about in the beginning, of me and you. The doing sets the grasping and rejecting. So usually in my meditation retreats, we are watching the breath a lot of the time. It's called vipassana in the Buddhist tradition. if you understand mind and object, then false conception do not arise. When false conception do not arise, this is the acceptance of the beginninglessness of things. Oh yeah. When you touch this place we're talking about here, it's beginningless. That's why I tell you it's beyond time and space. Because even if time is infinite, it's still beginning. You can call it infinite. But infinite, uendeligt, also has a beginning. Because it's connected with the finite. Med det endelige. Det uendelige og det endelige hænger sammen. So the nature of mind goes beyond that. Det går hinsides det endelige og det uendelige. It goes beyond the finite and the infinite. Get it? Feel it? You cannot know it really, because then the mind is thinking in these terms. The mind is thinking in time and space, so how can it understand the fourth dimension? It cannot. You can be the fourth dimension, then the whole world is in you. Everything there ever was and will be. Beginninglessness of things, it's wonderful. Because things are not what they look like. Everything is beginningless and endless. Because it's not there really. Creation is just a dream. What is real is the dreamer. The nature of mind. And the dreamer is beginningless. And the dream just seems to be, but if you start looking for it, it's not there. So science is working with everyday mind. It doesn't work with the truth of things. Science works with appearance. And it starts, of course, getting challenged 100 years ago by the quantum physics. And the quantum physics has long transcended the normal scientific approach, long ago. But we are still living in this positive empirism, like the science is, the physicalism. The science that we know was very much defined in the 1920s. And it was called empirism, it was called positivism, and it was called physicalism. And it defines an objective world that we can come to know by experience and logic. But it exists independently of us. That is the basic understanding of science still. And it was very much formulated by Wittgenstein those days. Ludwig Wittgenstein. He's dead now. He ended as a mystic actually. He said the only interesting thing that is left is death. Just like Camus said. Like this existentialist. He ended like that. But first he wrote Tractatus Philosophicus, which became the foundation of the modern science from the 1920s. And what we still believe in, basically, it's a paradigm that has not changed, even though the quantum physics has long ago transcended it. These guys were at the same time, Schrödinger, Heisenberg, Einstein. It's strange, but it never took fire really. So let's see how it is in the future with science and mysticism will really come together. It has to. How long can it be separated? So this is the acceptance of the beginninglessness of things. Then you just realize that you have never started and you never end. Zen called that the sound of one hand clapping. This beginninglessness is the sound of one hand clapping. Because one hand clapping is not two, right? It's one. And in Hinduism and Sanskrit it's Om. Om. The unstruck sound. The sound that was never started. The sound of life. the sound of silence, the sound of stillness, the sound of your heart, the sound of the fourth dimension is Om. And that's why it's just a sign, because you cannot say what it is. If you become absolutely silent, there is a sound of stillness, audible inside you, not outside. That is the sound of one hand clapping. That is the sound of Krishna's flute. So when Krishna, he plays the flute, then the whole existence starts appearing and dancing. This is esoteric understanding of it. That is the flute in the heart. That's why Radhe got totally crazy. Like life gets crazy. But creation. You have had it. You always had it. And you have it now. There's no need to cultivate the way and sit in meditation. You cannot really cultivate that. But you can help the mind to become quiet. The everyday mind. That is what the meditation can do. The meditation cannot touch the nature of the mind. Nothing can touch it. You cannot cultivate enlightenment in that way, as if it is some state you can have more or less. Either you get it or you don't. But you can do something about the everyday mind that keeps on coming in. So now he talks about the Tao. I told you the other day that Tao is another word for the nature of mind. And Tao is a Chinese word, and it's also called Tao. And it is, before Buddhism came to China, Taoism was the basic, deep, non-dual understanding. So the Taoism and Buddhism merging and become Zen, and they are very much alike. If you read Tao Te Ching of Chuang Tzu, then you will see it's just like a Buddhist sutra. Tao Te Ching is a very famous scripture that is in Danish. Tao Te Ching of Chuang Tzu. Right this moment, as you walk, stand, sit and recline, responding to all situations and dealing with people, all is the Tao, all is the Zen, all is the nature of mind. The Tao is the realm of reality. No matter how numerous and uncountable, inconceivable functions, they are not beyond this realm. If they were, how could we speak of the teaching of the mind ground? And how could we tell of the inexhaustible lantern, that beautiful word? If they were, how could we speak of the teaching of the mind ground? Enlightenment, or the source, is in Tibetan Buddhism called the luminous ground. The luminous ground is always there. Whether you are dark or bright, the luminous ground is the same. And how could we tell of the inexhaustible lantern? The nature of mind is like an inexhaustible light, not physical. Clarity. Closer to clarity. So now he calls it Tao. It can be, but just listen to it as the nature of mind or Zen. It's the same. Don't be deluded by the words. I don't know why he started talking about Tao. Ma-tsu, why do you do that? It's just disturbing. Now he comes back to the mind. The mind. All phenomena are mental. All labels are labeled by the mind. All phenomena arises out of mind. Mind is the root of all phenomena. As Sutra says, when you know mind and arrive at its root source, in that sense, you may be called a devotee. This sounds strange. But that's how it is. All phenomena are mental. So now you can see we go beyond that paradigm of science that believes in an objective world, separated from you. Buddhists and mystic will say that all phenomena are mental. That's why they can be yourself. How else could it be yourself? You think you will suddenly start being the trees and the cars around you if they were objective existing? No way. No, you realize that it's all mental. And then you say that omniscience, that I know everything, I'm everywhere. It's all myself. Not because you suddenly disappears into the trees or wherever out there. It's not out there. It just is, as a mental fabrication. That's why it's all myself. And that's why when you realize yourself, you feel this oneness. It's not because you suddenly become the trees. You realize you've always been it. And that is the feeling of oneness. All phenomena are mental. In Western philosophy, we will call that approach subjective idealism. And of course you find that also in the West. All labels are labeled by the mind. So all these things are something we call it with our thinking. All the phenomena, we give it names. All phenomena arises out of mind. You are the nature of mind, and it keeps on taking color of experiences. And you believe it's outside you. That is delusion. The delusion is if you believe there is a me and a world outside this me. That is duality. Mind is the root of all phenomena. So, in the lunch break, when you walk and you look out, just say, it's all my own mind. All the trees, the sky, the endless universes is your own mind. And it's very, very difficult to come into this understanding in the world we are living in, because it's so deluded. Your TVs and everything that is written and spoken here is dualistic. We talk about moving to Mars as if Mars is something separated from us. And the whole language we have and everything pulls you into delusion. When you know mind and arrive at its roots, at its root source, in that sense you may be called a devotee. I don't understand that. But let it be. Someone asked Ma-tsu, how does a man discipline himself in the Tao? The master replied, in the Tao there is nothing to discipline oneself in. If there is any discipline in it, the completion of such discipline means the destruction of the Tao. And then will be like the Sravaka. But if there is no discipline, whatever in the Tao, one remains an ignoramus. You know, when Socrates was declared by the oracle in Delphi to be the most wise person in the world, they all came running to him and said, but the oracle says you're the most wise person. And he said, but I don't know anything at all. And then they ran back and the oracle said, yes, that's why he is the most wise person. He's an ignoramus because he knows source and he knows that whatever you can know is everyday mind and it's not really there. It just seems so. It's a dream. It's a mental construction that is made of thoughts, of air. So the master replied, somebody asked Ma-tsu, how does a man discipline himself in the Tao? You cannot discipline yourself in the Tao. The master replied, in the Tao there is nothing to discipline oneself in. Because there is also no self there to discipline anything. It all vanishes and becomes one bright, inexhaustible presence that is luminous, totally content, love, free. It's not, I don't say there's nothing there, but what is there cannot be talked about. When a man finds himself unhalting in his management of the if there is any discipline in it, the completion of such discipline means the destruction of the Tao. When you touch source and you are resting as that, if there starts being any kind of discipline or anything that needs to be completed, then you enter into everyday mind immediately. Immediately. Because every steering of source appears as the everyday mind. Ooh, don't touch it. It's like you come into an antique shop with old antiques, very valuables. You don't touch anything, you just go there very carefully. Looking, don't touch anything because then it may break. So when you are in your restfulness in this space we call source, the nature of mind, you don't do anything. You're being done here. You're just being done. You're just being done. You're just letting go. It's a letting go. It's a letting go. It's a surrender. You just stay in gratitude at the most. Because in gratitude there's no steering of the intellect. So, the completion of such discipline means the destruction of the Tao. So that's what he means, that actually even meditation will disturb it here. Because meditation is also doing. One then will be like the Sravaka. Sravaka was dualist philosophers those days. But if there is no discipline, whatever in the Tao, one remains an ignoramus. You don't know a damn thing here. You are not knowingness. And that is very, very difficult. Because our whole conditioning tells us to understand and to think. Children those days are not taught to meditate. They are not taught anything about the inner world, the blessing of the inner world. They have no idea about it. They're just with some frustrated teacher that knows nothing but words. And how can they? I mean, it's terrible, but it's like that. But what kind of understanding does a man attain in the Tao? On this the master gave the following sermon. The Tao in its nature is from the first perfect and self-sufficient. When a man finds himself unhalting in his management of the affairs of life, good or bad, he is known as one who is disciplined in the Tao. To shun evil and to become attached to things good, to meditate on emptiness and to enter into a state of samadhi, this is doing something. If those who run after an outward object, they are farthest away from the Tao. The Tao in its nature, the nature of mind, in its nature is from the first perfect and self-sufficient. Just feel that. Self-sufficient. Undifferentiated. Cannot be put apart. And it's totally sufficient.
Sufficient.
Tilstrækkeligt. It's a total contentment without being content about anything. When a man finds himself unhalting in his management of the affair of life, good or bad, he is known as one who is disciplined in the Tao. You become like a stone. that you are not reacting to things, you are responding. So that's a big difference. When we are reacting, it is because of attachments. Responding is life, responding to life. And sometimes you see children are responding to you and you get very silent. You come out in the kitchen and the child says something to your way of behaving and you just can't say anything. Because it's a responding to you. It's not a judgment on you. You don't feel judged. You don't feel that you have to change. You don't feel blamed. The moment there is attachment related to your statements or whatever you do and say, then it's a reaction. The moment there is attachment, pain, good and bad, right and wrong, we are reacting. Reacting is unconscious. It can be predicted. You know what your father would do if you said something to him. That is a reaction. But if it is responding, you never know what will be the response. So reaction, you can say that it is the ego, the personality. It's predictable. And when we believe we are the personality, we are reacting, not responding. So an awakened person that is really deeply rooted in the clarity will be responding, just like a child. And that's why there's a similarity. To shun, to put away evils and to become attached to things good. To meditate on emptiness and to enter inner states of samadhi. This is doing something. This is the everyday mind, he says, Ma-tsu. Whatever you do something, you're immediately coming into the everyday mind. Unless you are identified, unless you are totally merged into consciousness itself, into the nature of mind itself. When the shift has happened, like I talked about in the beginning, the shift from being a person seeing the world to be consciousness seeing the person and the world. When you become awakened, there is a shift in your reference point. The deluded ignorant state, then the reference point is in the me. And the me is different from what this me is experiencing. There are two. That is the deluded state. And the reference point is in the ego sense, in the body. Upon awakening, this reference point is suddenly changed into consciousness itself. And then you see the body, and you see the person, and you see the world, but it's not you. It's your experiences. Can you understand that just intellectually a little bit? Just like that. Just happens. Oh, it's the same world. It has in a way not changed, but I see it differently. Because you see it from another point of view. You don't see it from the ego, body, mind anymore. You are reflecting it from source. And that is why I say that awakening is a shift. It's not really something to understand or figure out or Only let a man exhaust all his thinking and imagining he can possibly have in the triple world. When even an iota of imagination is left with him, this is his triple world and the source of birth and death in it. When there is not a trace of imagination, he has removed all the source of birth and death. He then holds the unparalleled treasure belonging to the Dharma Raja. All the imagination harbored since the beginningless past by an ignorant being, together with his falsehood, flattery and self-conceit, arrogance and other evil passions, are united in the body of one essence and all melt away. That's enough. Got it? It's so wonderful said. So you can really have an orgasm just reading this, because it's so wonderful inside, isn't it? Beautiful. Only let man exhaust all his thinking and imagining that he can possibly have in the triple world. The triple world is this world, the astral world and the world beyond. The three worlds. And we go on fluctuating between these three worlds as long as we are deluded. These three worlds are imaginations. You don't come down to earth when you reincarnate. There's no earth to come down to, for God's sake. There is arising an imagination in the ignorant mind that sees a certain world, that we are not coming down into the physical world. Can you see how our language is deluding us in the Western understanding? We don't go somewhere else and then come down here. It's all our imaginations. Death is an imagination, just as life is. It's mental projection. What is it that is projecting this mental projection? That's what we was inquiring into yesterday. What is it that is aware of experiences? What is it? When you realize that, you will know that it is that which is project the triple world. It is a projection from that place. So you don't go anywhere when you die, when you are awakened. You don't come and go. You cannot even say you are here, because here is also time and space. You are in the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension explodes into the three others, and we get deluded and believe that we have entered into another world that is an objective reality. So he says, only let man exhaust all his thinking and imagining that he can possibly have in the triple world. Exhaust it. See through it. Live it out. Don't hold anything back. Live totally and see that it is impermanent. Because if you don't live totally, if you hold back, then it's very, very difficult to be free of it. When even an iota is a very small measurement of imagination is left with him, this is his triple world and the source of birth and death in it. So on the moment of death and you're laying there, if there's just the slightest attachment to any state, you're reborn in the triple world. If you die and you're absolutely just, that the Tibetan Buddhism will say, the pure Rigpa or the luminous ground, and you're just absolutely in the clarity, not attached to anything, not holding anything away, you're just clear. Then the body slips away and you don't go anywhere. Otherwise there's rebirth. When there is no trace of imagination, trace means there's no rest, there's nothing left of imagination. He has removed all the source of birth and death. He then holds the unparalleled treasure belonging to the Dharma Raja. These are words from Buddhism, Dharma. Dharma means the truth and Raja means king. Just words. All the imagination harbored since the beginningless past by an ignorant being, together with his falsehood, flattery, self-conceit, selvbedrag, arrogance, and other evil passions, are united in the body of one essence, and all melt away. There is not a moment where all this is separated from source, because everyday mind is the nature of mind always. So there's not good and bad as two different things. What we call evil here in the Buddhist tradition is ignorance. It's not a substance that is separated from what is good. There's not two. It's not a dualistic religion. If you really sit and meditate on a sutra like this, and you really just sit and just eat it like a delicious cake, oh, wow. It can be your awakening. Then words can lead you to it, because they're so precise and to the point. Then you can catch it. Just catch it. Like Osho used to say, it cannot be taught, it can be caught. I really love it, it's true. It cannot be taught, it can be caught. Got it! What did you get? I don't know. I just got it. I just know. It's just a marvelous. I don't know what it is. I've always been this. There's nothing new in it. How could I forget it? How could I go away from it so much? Wandering away into the labyrinth of imaginations. So don't create new imaginations. Don't go into all kind of ideas of New Age with souls and stuff and whatever people are imagining. Be clear and clean. There's so much New Age stuff and your purpose in life and I don't know what. Who has a purpose in life? What is your life purpose? Is there a who here at all who has a life purpose? All these people, imagination, go to courses in and get lost into. Don't create any imaginations. Whatever has forms and names is not it. Neti neti, says Advaita. Let go, let go. When we touch it, when we touch the sense of being, when imagination is not steered, when there is no striving or no rejecting, when there is a kind of here now peace, we call it beingness, or then if you just rest here, you may suddenly find that you are being lived, that the body is being lived, the thoughts are being lived, the feelings are being lived. And that is one of the indications of it. Like something takes over. And somehow just be open to that. That when you go deep in your sense of being and living and presence, then be open to this or being lived. Because that's where the shift happens. I'm not living, there's not a person here living, it's being lived by something so wonderful, something so marvelous, something that I truly am. This is who I am. It's impersonal. So this is our next inquiry this morning. How to experience to be lived. So we try to invite that opening into that possibility. How is it possible? Can it be possible? That you have to answer the question, how is it to be lived? Because that is one of the ways to plunge directly into it. And now we work with the other questions, or we can go to this now. I know we could have spent much more time also on impermanence, and we could have spent a lot of time on how to experience impermanence. But we'll do that another time. Because somebody asked you, then you had to explain it. You had to understand for yourself, yeah, what do I mean by it? Not what you have read about it, but what is it? Because everybody knows it, everybody is it. That's what he says also. You will be it whether you know it or not. That's the only difference. Close your eyes for a moment. So it's not about the action in itself. It's not the happenings in itself that is changing. It is what initiates it, what starts it. That is the shift. The thoughts will go on, the feelings will go on, the experiences will go on. But what is initiating it? When you're ignorant, you believe it's you. You call it your thoughts, you call it your actions, you call it your movements. It's all related to you, to a sense of privacy, to a sense of separation. But what if you drop that and you let the action be and just let it be lived? Effortlessly. Then you will feel the personality is also being lived. The sense of me is being lived. The body sensations are being lived. It's a way to open up to how it actually is experienced to be awakened. It is to feel that you are being lived. effortlessly, spontaneously. That is the delight, that it is effortless, spontaneous, free. That's pure delightfulness. So intimate and so impersonal. Marvelous. Marvelous betyder... Ja, hvad betyder det på dansk? Fantastisk, ja. So let's work a little bit with that after our break.
In the bones.
What?
And the marvel in the bones.
Yeah, it is. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.